Call the February 2022 Pleasant Ridge City Commission meeting to order. May we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May we have roll call?
Commissioner Budnick,
Here.
Commissioner Lenko,
Here.
Commissioner Perry,
Here.
Commissioner Schmier,
Here.
Mayor Scott.
Here. Just a quick note to say happy Valentine's Day for everyone. It's coming up. If you're inclined to buy gifts for your loved one, probably want to do it a little earlier this year. I noticed that some of the shelves are emptying up fast, so get those heart-shaped boxes of chocolates bought early as possible. And with that, I guess we'll start on the Watertown's presentation.
Well, good evening. Thank you very much for inviting us here, for the opportunity to present to you this project that we've been working on for the last year. If you remember back in 2021, there was a signed resolution to become a water town. That Watertown Project is part of Clinton River Watershed Council's pride and joy, really. It's a place-based, placemaking initiative that really helps communities leverage assets of water resources. And we do that by incorporating green infrastructure into some of the community planning. It helps make connections between communities and their water resources, and also helps with the stormwater management as well. My name is Chris Bobrick, and I am the watershed planner for the Clinton River Watershed Council. We received money from funding from the Herb Family Foundation to run this project since 2013. And what we're going to see tonight is the products of this year-long project, essentially. Quickly on this slide, the mission of our Watershed Council is to celebrate, enhance, and restore the Clinton River, its watershed, and Lake St. Clair. We are a nonprofit environmental organization who prides itself on helping communities really realize what their potential is for stormwater and natural resources management. Again, today we're going to be looking at some of the products that our contractor, Drummond Carpenter, has really presented for us this year as part of this Watertown program. So there are quite a bit of renderings to go through. You can see some beautiful renderings. And I'm just going to go to this next slide for the project introduction. Really the goals of this project were to produce these renderings to give you an idea of what this type of green infrastructure would look like. But in addition to these beautiful renderings, there's some math behind it. There are some calculations that really let you understand how much stormwater can be removed from the system in perpetuity. In addition to that, you'll have some cost estimates and some how much is removed from the system, cost estimates, and what we can actually do with volunteer work as well, which is something the Watershed Council can help with. Last year we included Kego Harbor as well as Pleasant Ridge, and we will, near the end of the session, I'll show you just some few examples of what other communities have done before you. So Don, I'm going to turn it over to you, sir. He's going to go over the rest of the program for you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. Again, my name is Don Carpenter. I'm a green stormwater infrastructure and community engagement specialist. So I grew up in Huntington Woods. I don't know if that's a point in my favor against me, but either way, I'm very familiar with the community we're in here today and the issues that kind of this area, the Woodward Corridor, faces in terms of stormwater management. And as far as stormwater management goes, we're really starting to talk more about resiliency, right? How do we make our communities more resilient to the increased rainfalls that we're starting to see in southeast Michigan? How do you use that then to also kind of alleviate some of the flooding that we might see? So green infrastructure, there's a nice long definition up there by the US EPA. But effectively, what green infrastructure is, it's a nature's way of dealing with stormwater management as opposed to gray infrastructure, which is the pipes that exist today and underground. You said it would advance it. Which way do I got to point this thing?
It's been giving me trouble all night. Yeah, how about I just move it for you?
Just the big gray one, right?
Nope, everything froze.
Everything froze.
It's not just you.
Imagine, if you will,
So the best part's coming up, all the pictures. So hopefully we don't take too long. So as Chris mentioned, a lot of what we also talk about is placemaking, right? So creating places that people also want to visit and go. So that's also a piece of the Watertowns. There we go. So I already talked about resiliency, flooding, so I'll pick up the pace here a little bit. And there's some of the placemaking associated with the environmental side. So I think this is working again. Yep. Okay. So what do you get as being part of the Watertown and going through this process? So you get a report. You get printed graphic boards, which are in the hallway there, that you can kind of leave up or display at your leisure, so people can kind of get close up to it and discuss it. You get this PowerPoint presentation, and then I just handed off an old USB key to the city manager that's got all of the presentations, all the Excel spreadsheets, all the calculations, things that you can use to help write grants. And that's what a lot of the communities that go through this process do, is they use this information to help secure additional funding. On these slides coming up, you're going to see cost estimates of green stormwater infrastructure. I want to explain those cost estimates a little bit. One of the things about those cost estimates is that they assume primary contract labor, which basically means we don't assume any community has the ability to do things either in-house or with volunteers. Some communities do, which would then lower the costs. Okay, and then the costs you're going to see include mobilization, design, contingencies. It's all in, right? It's not just, hey, this is going to, it's if you did it all. The last thing I'm going to explain, and then we're really going to roll through these renderings, is you're going to see a raindrop on every single practice. And what that raindrop represents is the size of water that comes from 99% of all storm events, right? So 2.3 inches of rain, that's the cutoff for 99% of all rainfall events. 1% rainfall events are bigger than that. That is really the target for green stormwater infrastructure. We can't capture 5 inches of rain. We can't capture 7 inches of rain. It would not be practical. But if we can do 2.3 inches, we're doing massive good. And so what you'll see is the existing runoff, and then as the raindrop gets larger and more blue, that's how much it's capturing. Okay. All right, so in the city of Pleasant Ridge, we actually did basically 4 focal areas. One was the Oxford Park intersection. Then we looked at the 3 long boulevards, and then we also looked at the City Hall parking lot out here. Okay, so the Oxford intersection. One thing to point out in this one is it's a fairly, I'm sure you're familiar with it, but there's a lot of concrete there. There's and especially crossing kind of from north to south, there's no crosswalk right there, and it's kind of a long way for people to maybe work their way across. So what we looked at doing for this one is basically narrowing it up, creating a shorter distance for people to cross the street. You can't park that close to an intersection anyway. You'll get a ticket if you do that. So instead of having people park there, you got to bump out with green infrastructure, right? So it's safer, more aesthetically pleasing, and you can actually capture a lot of stormwater in that context. So we have 3 different individual bioretention cells there. They're going to capture 2.3 inches of rain from that surrounding area. So what does that look like? Here's the existing condition looking east. So that's what it would look like then heading that same direction. So you've got parking behind where the camera shot is taken, but near the intersection there, it gets narrowed up. So looking towards the school, really it becomes more like a traditional T intersection with crosswalks. Then looking at the boulevards, we didn't render all the boulevards because they're all very, very similar, but the idea is all of them have the opportunity to take water from the street and then put it into kind of a meandering swale path. And so we looked at each boulevard differently. The boulevards are between $140,000 and $220,000 for the green stormwater infrastructure. The longer the boulevard, the higher the price point, right? So that's the existing condition there. So that's what you could do. If you wanted to just mow it and keep it as a mowed swale, then you could do that. And then you're slightly piping the water in from the concrete to the middle. But we would obviously encourage more using native species, pollinator plants of different, and maybe even some river rock down the middle and kind of create a river for the stormwater in there. So this kind of gives you an idea of what the 2 options are, the price point of those different options. The grass swale might be easier to mow, but you're going to get less infiltration and less benefit than you would from doing the native plants. So a couple of the other ideas are these end caps. So a good opportunity to capture stormwater right before it goes into the catch basin. So there's an existing end cap, and you can kind of see the catch basins immediately upstream of those. So you capture some stormwater, put it into a little swale, get some water into the ground, and then excess water will then end up in the existing system as it goes today. And then there's still a path there for mowers to go through. And that can be replicated at every end cap. And then there's some, obviously some parks up and down Woodward that have opportunities for green space to be converted into rain gardens. Some green space that probably isn't being necessarily utilized or is being underutilized, that we could come in and put in native plants. You know, so curb cut, push that water under a sidewalk, have some decorative elements, capture it, and then the excess water spills into the system as it currently does. Okay. The last one we looked at is City Hall, mostly because we got some grading issues here and some water that kind of has a tendency to come straight at this building. So if we assume that the parking lot more or less stays in the same configuration, it's roughly the same pitch, there's an opportunity to, let's say, a strip of porous pavers and then underground storage. So have either underground stone storage or underground plastic storage, and then kind of a strip of porous pavement right along the front there to intercept that water and take it into the ground. If porous pavers are a little bit too expensive or maybe not as, maybe harder to maintain for the community, there's also opportunities to do trench drains and some other decorative elements to capture that water before it comes into the building. So in totality, when you looked at these 4 sites that we looked at, you're looking at, we can capture about 90% of all the runoff from those little areas that we looked at. You can see you're looking at a total amount of, the existing runoff from those areas under this size storm is about 85,000 gallons of water. The proposed runoff is only about 8,000. So you're reducing it about 90%. And I think it's important to note that that's in perpetuity. You do have to maintain these, but it's not like you get one time. It's every time it rains, these things are working and functioning. The total improvements here, there's a lot of infrastructure we're working on, but it's about $4.4 per gallon. Maybe that's another way to kind of think about the metric. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Chris. He's going to talk to you a little bit about implementation assistance that's offered as part of this project. And if you have any last minute questions, we'll answer them.
Yeah, thanks. So, wonderful benefit of this program is that you have a $5,000 mini grant at your disposal. It's a matched mini grant that can be matched either by in-kind services or cash match. If you happen to have a grant, we can use that as well to match that $5,000. And that is really just to help implement one of the projects that you've seen today or something else that you may have in mind. So yes, it requires one-to-one in-kind services. So that can be used anytime. We would like you to use that within the next 2 years. So hopefully that'll happen. If not, a lot of communities will use that as leverage for additional grants, just as a secondary component to that. And we'd be happy to help you with that as well.
Very cool.
Here is the spread of Watertown's existing since its inception in 2013. So the goal is to have the entire watershed a water town, right? All 72 or 74 communities that we work with, we're trying to work to give them this opportunity. And here's just a few examples. Again, not just green infrastructure for stormwater management, but there's also that placemaking element. This was in Clarkston where they replaced the bridge. Not totally through this program, but they used it to help gain some support from the community, where a donor actually came in and supplied that bridge for them. That was the bridge before and after on the right, and then the community actually stepped in and planted some native plants as well. So really overall great project to work with. You can look at native plantings. Now, doesn't always have to be capturing stormwater as a depression, but it can be native plants that are adding some of that infiltration over turf grass. So that does provide some additional infiltration, but it also adds a wildlife benefit to it if you're looking or thinking about pollinators, for instance. This was that same shoreline in Clinton Township where 2015 was planted. You can see 2017 it was very lush and green and vibrant, and it is even more so today. Unfortunately, I don't have a picture of that, but be assured that it is similar to what you see on 2017. And the pollinators there are just fantastic, by the way. Again, if you think you have a parking lot that may be at the end of its serviceable life, we have many communities that look to implement some of the green stormwater infrastructure systems into their parking lot. So it's not just a concrete desert. This was also in Clinton Township at their municipal office. So they redid that parking lot, including some of the parking lot islands in there. So again, there's different ways. Everything that was presented to you today doesn't have to be done exactly that way. I just want you to think about the various ways that you can capture some of that stormwater. And this is up close to those parking lot islands. A very simple plant palette for easy maintenance and still capturing that stormwater. That was another bioswale at the same location. Lastly, in front of the Clinton River Watershed Council's office, we had a wonderful rain garden put in. This is what the rendering showed. That was how it looked when it was planted. And again, it is alive and vibrant, and the pollinators are fantastic. Another parking lot example, before on the left and after, including, again, some of those inverted parking lot islands to capture that stormwater. And a close-up of that parking lot as well. So, all in all, I wanted to stress two things here. One, that you have that mini grant at your disposal. We really want you to use that money. And secondly, that the Watershed Council is here for you, to help you at any point in time. So we don't see this program as something that we'll walk away from. If you need help with any type of nature-based solutions to your stormwater management issues, we're here to help. In any climate sustainability planning, we are here to help. So I appreciate your time, and we'll take any questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Were there any questions?
Those are beautiful ideas.
Mhm.
I know. I agree.
All right, will we have a motion?
Your Honor, I move the Watertown's report be received and filed.
Support?
May I have a vote?
Commissioner Perry?
Yes.
Commissioner Budnick?
Yes.
Commissioner Lenko?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmier?
Yes.
Mayor Scott?
Yes. Excellent. Thank you again for coming. It was a really good report, and we're always interested in water management in Pleasant Ridge. We've put some things in place already, and we'll consider some more.
Fantastic. Thank you for your time.
Oh, and you brought the boards, right? There for people that people can see in the corner?
Yeah, absolutely. You're
All right.
key.
That's cool.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, moving on to public discussion. Any comments? Maybe under governmental report,
Yeah.
or now? Okay, that's okay. We'll make a governmental report. All right, no public discussion. Let's go to the liaison reports. Ms. Schmier? Commissioner
Yes. You want me to start?
Yes.
Historical. We did not have an official meeting this month. We instead had a Google Drive tutorial, making sure everyone, understands all the capabilities. That being said, just a couple reminders. Number one, 100-year tiles. Remember, you can buy them at City Hall. The museum is open on the third Saturday of every month, and that would make it, the 19th. So not this Saturday, the Saturday after it will be open. And beyond that, we are also just in the process of working on the ornaments, the holiday ornaments, so picking colors and looking at tile samples. So that is all I have this month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Mayor.
please go right
I was saying,
ahead.
Commissioner Schmier, what was the time that it's open from on the third Saturday?
10 to noon.
Thank you.
No, thank you. 10 to noon, third Saturday.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to the Recreation Commission.
Thank
With
you.
Commissioner Budnick.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Greg and Shawnee, for the report. We did have a meeting on 126 a couple weeks ago. First and foremost, youth baseball, youth soccer, and swim team registration is underway. So look for early deadline registrations. You can register online or in person. Drop-in yoga classes Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday evenings are available. And Zumba is available on Wednesday evenings. And if you're looking for a summer job, we are hiring lifeguards, head guards, swim team coach, and camp counselors. The deadline to apply is March 31st, and applications are online under the Recreation tab. Camp registration begins April 4th. Field trips and camp dates are listed online for you to start planning ahead. Campers must be turning age 7 during the 2022 calendar year. Camp meets Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., beginning on June 13th. And the blood drive is on Tuesday, February 22nd. Book that at AmericanRedCross.org. And if you are interested in a 2022 garden plot, please reach out to my man Greg in the back at the rec at 541-2902 to get added to the list for information. And information is in the Ridger and always online on the city website. And I know we'll dive more into it, but we at the rec commission meeting we had a good discussion around the rules and everything that goes along with the new pavilion, which is super exciting. It looks awesome, and finishing touches are being put together, but very exciting to see that all come to fruition. So that is all I have.
Awesome. Spring will approach. All right. Commissioner Lanko for the public schools.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. So, a couple quick updates. The next full board meeting is Monday. Again, they stream live on YouTube if you're interested in watching. Major development from last meeting is an updated quarantine isolation guideline. Recommend you take a look on the website, but in some ways it's been loosened, and if you're fully vaccinated, negative COVID test with no symptoms, you can return to school with a well-fitted mask. So again, I encourage you to go out to the website and check that out, as well as a couple open houses coming up, the 10th, the 17th, and the 16th for Montessori, Lower Elementary, and Early Childhood Center. So recommend giving those a look too. So that's all I got.
Thank you. Commissioner Perry with
Thank
planning.
Thank you, Commissioner Scott. The Planning Commission and DDA did not meet this past month. However, last night there was a Woodward Moves Complete Street Project meeting that was held, that MDOT hosted and held online. We will make sure to post there, there's a lot of information on the city website that you can go in and look at the project and the TAP funding from SEMCOG and everything, but we'll also make sure to try and get I've been trying to get a recording of the meeting so people can watch that too. So that is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. It was an interesting meeting last night. There were lots of comments about the reconfiguration of Woodward Avenue. I'm sure we'll have lots of discussion here about it
Yep.
as it transpires. And I think with that, we'll move to governmental reports. Please.
All right. That's us. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Commission and City Administration. I am Jeremy Moss, the State Senator here in Pleasant Ridge, along with...
Hello, I'm State Representative Regina Weiss, State Rep here for Pleasant Ridge.
And I'll just start off by saying I served a term on the Southfield City Council, and Rep. Weiss served a term on the Oak Park City Council. And it's like a rite of passage to talk about bioswales and porous pavers. And so we're expressing our affinity for that discussion. So thanks for that presentation.
Warm memories.
Yes. We just want to give an update about what's going on in Lansing and how it impacts us here back home in Pleasant Ridge. First and foremost, we understand how challenging it is to adjust to in-person meetings, and we were supporters of lengthening the time for virtual meetings during this challenging time we're living in. Unfortunately, the majority did not agree with us, and so here we are all together. But we appreciate all that you're doing for the city of Pleasant Ridge. And I guess I won't bury the lead that we have new districts, and unfortunately for us, Pleasant Ridge is not in either of our districts as we seek re-election this year. So this is kind of our hello and our grand farewell. But
Come back before November.
Perfect. And to that point, we are still in service as the state legislators for Pleasant Ridge until December 31st this year. So just because there are new districts that we are drawn into does not mean we are shirking our responsibility in service here. So you can reach out to us for anything. And to that end, we have this election coming up. I wanted to talk about what takes up a lot of the oxygen in the room in Lansing, and that's some of the election reforms that are coming out of the state legislature. A lot of these provisions just are onerous requirements that make it just harder for certain communities to vote and participate fully in our democracy. I have voted against every provision that's come forward that would make it more challenging to participate in an election. I can go over some examples, and I know Rep. Weiss has as well, and the governor has vetoed that legislation. So we are trying to promote access to the ballot, reduce these types of barriers, and defeat proposals that would make it harder for citizens in this community to vote. And to that end, there will be a ballot proposal. There actually will be several ballot proposals out there regarding election reform, regarding other public health measures. And I just wanted to caution anybody to just read what you sign. Just so you may know or may not know, an election petitioner is not compelled by law to tell you the truth about what's on their ballot proposal. And I've put up legislation time and time again to restore honesty and integrity in our ballot proposals. And I had legislation that actually passed nearly unanimously out of the House when I was a House member, and then the Senate did not take it up. So I figure I'll go to the Senate and try and do it that way, working backward. But no, we haven't had the ability to kind of reform and restore integrity in our ballot proposals. That's not to say that our dedicated volunteers aren't doing the hard work, but there's some space for some bad actors out there. So it's just a caution on whatever the issue is. When someone approaches you with a petition, just read what's on the petition so that you know what you are signing and that you agree with what you are signing. And to that end, talking about kind of this election space, there's some areas that I've been working on to kind of improve the way that elected officials act, the way that our campaigns run. Still working on some better laws on campaign finance reform. I think that there's kind of this scandal that came out of Lansing that we're all following, or at least we're following, in terms of misuse of funds and inappropriate spending, among other bad allegations. So I've been kind of on the watch to make sure that we are shoring up our ethics laws, especially when it comes to elections, but also everything that we do in Lansing. I know Commissioner Perry hears me say this all the time when I do my coffee hours about FOIA and the Freedom of Information Act. I'm still on this mission to kind of make state government more transparent and accountable and accessible, whereas the city here is subjected to FOIA. If a resident wants to find out what's going on, wants access to this presentation, they file Freedom of Information Act request, and that can be fulfilled. But we don't have FOIA of the legislature. We don't have FOIA of the governor's office. And so when I was a House member about 6 or 7 years ago, we came together across the aisle with a legislative partner of mine to draft an open records law that would give citizens the ability to actually see the inner workings of government, because we're one of only 2 states in the entire nation that does not subject all of state government to these open records laws. 2 states that don't allow you to access legislative records, governor's office records. So those bills passed unanimously, again, came to the Senate to die. And so working my way backwards from the Senate now over to the House, we've gotten these bills to, at long last, shine a light on state government as far along in the process as we have. And they're now before the Senate floor for consideration. So I'm the primary author of it, along with one of my colleagues, Republican Ed McBroom from the Upper Peninsula. And every scandal that happens in Lansing, we kind of just peek around the corner and say, could have prevented this, could have found this earlier, could have known about it. So we are, again, pushing for that effort to kind of restore more accountability in state government. And then I'll talk about 2 more things before I turn it over to Rep. Weiss. So Rep. Weiss serves on the Appropriations Committee, so she's knee-deep in the budget and the budgeting process. I'm kind of on the outside looking in, but have been a big advocate as a former council member myself in a neighboring community to restore revenue sharing, to boost revenue sharing. I see a lot of nodding heads. That's the tax dollars that we pay here to Lansing, and there's supposed to be an expectation that it comes back home to provide for essential services like bioswales and other things, probably more essential services as well. So we have been able to boost revenue sharing in the last budget, given the federal support that we've gotten. And we're very excited about that, but we are going to be dogged in our determination to push forward to kind of right the wrongs of the last generation that has just totally cut city services and the expectation of the services that you're supposed to provide for the residents here. Lastly, I'll talk about climate resiliency. This is like yeah, I know. I didn't know this presentation was going to be on here. Maybe I can get some help from some folks who are more experts on this than I am. So obviously we all endured last summer the historic storms, which aren't going to get better. We're continuing to see a changing climate impact the environment around us. But one thing we can control, especially at the state level, is climate resiliency of our infrastructure. And so last fall, I was part of both state Senate and state House effort to introduce bills, because I know in southern Oakland County we've gotten pummeled time and time again by these storms that shut down roads and flood basements. To promote a climate resiliency plan. Among the things that we're proposing includes a climate resiliency corps, which would create a partnership to employ Michigan residents in climate resiliency projects. We also want to create a one-stop shop navigator for folks to kind of figure out what grants are accessible, what other programs are there to deal with disaster relief, not just for the individual, but for the community as well. We want to require each water utility to have a backup power source. If the primary source fails, to prevent pumping stations from running out of power in a flood. And then we want to emphasize the importance of that emergency notification system that comes to our phones, so that people kind of understand the information that's coming to them and what it means, and actually get that information out quicker. So to that end, we put a lot of money into items like climate resiliency. In the Senate, just in December, we passed a Senate bill that provides $3.3 billion to deal with water infrastructure. Now, this is before the House, so it's kind of a good transition to turn it over to Rep. Weiss to talk about some of the appropriations that we've expended. But this would deal with lead line replacement, dam removal and repair, drinking water systems, clean water infrastructure, PFAS remediation, filtered drinking water at schools. So we have this. We benefited from the American Rescue Plan Act to put these dollars to work, and that was one of the plans that came out of the Senate. This $3.3 billion in investment. It's very similar kind of theme and topic to deal with some of the issues that we're dealing with when it rains too much and other water-related issues. So I'll kick it over to Rep. Weiss, who can talk more about some of the appropriations that we're allocating that Pleasant Ridge will benefit from.
Thank you, Senator Moss. So as Senator Moss said, I serve on the Appropriations Committee. And I think when we talk about a lot of these supplementals and the budgets and the exec rec and all these things, it gets really confusing to people, because we're just like, there's billions of dollars and it's hard to conceptualize what that even means. But just a few things to note. First of all, in terms of, we had our consensus revenue estimating conference a few weeks ago, where top economists in the state kind of laid out where we're at and where we're anticipating to be for the next year in terms of revenues for the state. And it was really great news overall. We have billions of additional revenue coming in through both the general fund and school aid, state dollars. And so the economic outlook for Michigan is good for the coming year. So that helps a lot for a lot of the initiatives and things that we're trying to push and help, be it school aid, be it a lot of these other initiatives that Senator Moss was talking about, revenue sharing, all of these things. We also have had several different supplemental budgets proposed that have either passed through the House or passed through the Senate. Very few have been able to pass through both the House and the Senate and get to the governor's desk, get negotiated all the way through. And so the bill that Senator Moss was just referencing did pass through the Senate. We're still sitting in appropriations in the House. I'm hopeful that we can get that across the board as well. But we did actually just have a supplemental that passed today that I think is a pretty big deal that's going to help a lot with COVID relief across the state and help fund a lot of really important initiatives. So that was House Bill 5523, sponsored by Rep. Calley, and that was over $1.2 billion in federal funds. So again, throwing around billions of dollars. We still have billions of dollars. I believe after this passed, we have about $6.5 billion of unappropriated ARPA dollars, American Rescue Plan dollars, still in Washington, D.C. after this. So there's still a lot of money that we have yet to appropriate from what the federal relief has spent. But this would provide about $1.6 billion to help with addressing some of these issues. And I'll just highlight a few things that are in this bill. There's $367 million for investing in epidemiology and lab capacity across the state to help with things like contact tracing, disease investigations, and increased testing. There is money for $14 million in funding for the National Kidney Foundation of Michigan to implement chronic kidney disease prevention initiative. There's $4 million for Wayne State University to implement a Michigan Mobile Health Core program. $10 million for homeless shelter repair grants. There is an additional $250,000 to create a competitive grant program for school districts and intermediate districts to help expand work-based learning activities and health services. There is several pieces of funding to help with early treatment sites for COVID and investing in things like monoclonal treatment. There is epidemiology and lab capacity for school safety, another $150 million for that, to provide more COVID tests for our schools. We know that's been a huge issue. I've been on the phone frequently with our superintendents waiting to get testing, waiting for the state to get testing, and that's been a huge concern with keeping kids in school. So that is meant directly to help with that, address that issue. There's $300 million for healthcare recruitment and retention support to help provide funding for recruitment and retention programming for healthcare employees. We know that's a huge issue right now in our state as we're battling our way, hopefully, to the end of this pandemic. And additional funding for nursing home room conversions, and nursing home respirators. Additional $90 million for vaccine support to help get more vaccines into arms. And additional $9 million for PACE program to help cover funding for care for the PACE program, which helps elderly people in our communities. So there's a lot of great stuff in the bill that passed today. So that did come out of the Senate, passed the House. So it's over to the governor to sign, and we're hoping that money will actually get out the door here very soon. And then another exciting budget news. Tomorrow is the executive recommendation. So at 11 o'clock tomorrow, the governor will be delivering her executive recommendation to a joint appropriations meeting with the House and the Senate, and where she'll lay out a balanced budget for how we can spend the anticipated revenues for the next year, as well as additional recommendations for how to spend some more of that supplemental funding. Because as I mentioned, we still have billions of dollars sitting in DC that we have yet to appropriate. And so anyone who's interested in watching that, it's going to be aired live tomorrow. So if you go to house.mi.gov, you scroll to the bottom, you can see House TV, and I believe it's under the Appropriations meeting, and you can click on that to watch it. There's a lot of great stuff coming. I kind of got a little sneak preview. A lot of it's embargoed before tomorrow, so I can't share too widely, but I will.
You'll want to watch.
I will say it's some good news for local communities, I think, and
good.
local cities.
Yay.
Good news regarding revenue sharing, and so I hope you'll turn in and you'll watch that. And also amazing news for our school aid and for schools across our state.
That's great.
Yeah, I serve as the minority vice chair on school aid in the House, and this is some of the most exciting news that I've seen. And we had a great budget last year, and I think the executive recommendation for school aid this year is even better. And so I'm really excited about it. And again, tune in tomorrow to see, because I don't want to get in trouble.
What time?
It's at 11 o'clock. And then one last thing, too, just so folks know, there'll be more information out about it next week, but I serve as the secretary for the Legislative Labor Caucus, and we've put together a large bill package to help support working people throughout the state, help with things like collective bargaining across multiple sectors. And we are going to be rolling out that package in a press conference next Tuesday. So there'll be more coming with that as well.
Cool.
Yeah. And if anyone needs to get in touch with myself, anyone at home, if you have concerns about issues or any other issues, like if you're having issues with employment, you can always reach out to my office. You can email me at reginaweiss@house.mi.gov. And my office number is 517-373-0478.
Ditto. You can contact me at senatormoss.com. We got that URL. I was really excited about that. So that's where all my contact information is. And again, we're a full stop shop. If you got any issue that we can navigate through state government, or you have an idea for a policy proposal, if you're dealing with unemployment or anything like that, we have a one-stop shop there at senatormoss.com.
That's awesome.
Excellent.
Thank you. And I will say that if there's ever a question that you have, they're always available. So definitely reach out if you have a question. One for you, is there a call to action that you would recommend to people leading up to November or on anything at all state related?
Yeah, pay attention. I think is really mostly. I mean, there's going to be a lot of ballot proposals floating around, some dealing with increasing voter rights, some dealing with reducing voter rights, some dealing with repealing health orders and other public health orders that aren't even in effect anymore. So it's just really, democracy works when we all pay attention. And so, again, there will be circulators that will be out there, and some might have multiple clipboards. And I tell people this too, you don't have to sign anything. I think some people, like, it's the human imperative. Oh, somebody presents you a clipboard and you want to sign it. Read it. You read it first, and if you agree with it, and you want to see it on your ballot or before the legislature for action, then sign it. But, we've seen so many kind of people manipulate the process by misrepresenting the contents of their ballot petitions. So in terms of public participation in our democracy, this is it, the ballot proposal process and the election process coming on in November of this year. But just, pay attention. So as the Redistricting Commission redrew these lines, Pleasant Ridge will have new candidates running for state senate and state representative. We're running for re-election elsewhere, so we're not campaigning here. But we won't be that far away. But there will be some good candidates before you, and just make sure to vet them and see what they'll do here for Pleasant Ridge and see, what their platform is and if it works for you. But Pleasant Ridge will get a whole new slate of legislators.
Yeah, it's crazy. I live about 2 minutes from here, and I'm in a different district.
Yes. And Southfield and Pleasant Ridge, I live in Southfield, have been in this Southern Oakland County Senate District for 20 years together. And so now they've broken us up. So
Yeah.
So sad.
And just so folks know too, and that's another, I think, call to action is just to educate yourself on what your districts now look like. So Pleasant Ridge will now, I don't know that Senate number off the top of my head. I don't know if you know it. Senate District 8 and House District 7. And House District 7 includes much of Royal Oak, like the downtown area, most of Royal Oak, Pleasant Ridge, Ferndale, and then it goes down into like Palmer Park, Sherwood Forest, University District, and Detroit. So it's sort of like a large, long rectangle.
And then on the Senate side, it's kind of that footprint, except a little bit bigger. It goes all the way up to Birmingham. Parts of, I think, Clawson are in that district. Pleasant Ridge, Ferndale, Oak Park, Huntington Woods, Royal Oak Township, and a large portion of Detroit. So a lot of these districts now are Oakland County, Wayne County districts. And so Pleasant Ridge will be kind of right square in the middle of a district that goes from Birmingham all the way down to Detroit.
Yeah.
I'd say we're the center of it all, but it's been
That's
taken.
our slogan. That's our slogan.
And I want to say, too, just really quick, because I should have said this to start, but congrats to our new commissioners.
Yes.
And congrats to our new mayor.
Yes.
Thank you. Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Any questions from anyone?
Appreciate you being here. This is
That was a
very
lot.
Yeah, sorry.
very informative.
Yeah.
No, it was great to have it.
So to that
Yeah.
end, we do virtual coffee hours because we can't do in person. Robert Wittenberg and I used to be at the rec center, but Regina and I have been on computer screens for most of Regina's term. So I think our next one, which I don't have my phone on me, is next Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken. Or I might be making that up.
so I can't remember off the top of my head. But
We're
you
going to
can,
have a virtual coffee hour sometime next
yes,
week.
and you can find the information on our Facebook pages.
Yep.
So do you know your Facebook? Okay.
Oh yeah, it's
Office of Senator Moss.
Office of State Senator Jeremy Moss. We stream these live from my page, and then State Rep Weiss shares them to her page, and we just kind of give a longer update and entertain questions in the chat and try to answer them as best as we can. So yeah, this we got a good show going. So just keep watching.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you very much.
you guys.
Thanks for
Thank
coming.
you.
More on governmental reports.
Senator Moss made it awkward. He was like, he and Regina aren't campaigning because Right. Hi, I'm Charlie Cavell, County Commissioner. So I'd like to give you all a quick update. First, I'll talk about COVID real quick, and then county business. And COVID because it's still happening, and county's leading the response through the Public Health Department. So first, Pleasant Ridge had 93 recent positive cases. So if you don't know how to find that, you can go online, oaklandcountyvaccine.com, or reach out to me. But 93 active cases, so that's better than things were. Worse than they have been, but getting better. We're kind of seeing the light a little bit, hopefully. Second, shout out to the state folks here, Jeremy and Regina, for helping give Oakland County and every other local government in the state hundreds of thousands of KN95 masks. So Oakland County's getting 800,000 of them. And I think one way you can think about that is it's like a bureaucratic thing that's just a service that the government provides sometimes by all of you here and hopefully the people listening. But especially kudos to them too, because that is a tectonic shift in the way we think about the common good and the government's role of using our tax dollars in our lives. So it's like a big deal that we're getting something universal at no cost to the end user, focused on public health. That's super huge. So rock on you guys. And thanks for letting us get some of the credit. So county business. We introduced just last week at our last county commission meeting, something that I've been working on closely with our team, an attainable housing or housing security initiative program. So it's a $29 million ask. It'll probably get negotiated down, but $29 million for attainable housing for families, because there are a lot of families, especially millennials and growing families, that are finding it hard to afford Oakland County. And then also for those people's employers, what you're kind of seeing is this drive to Macomb County. So people will live in Macomb and work in Oakland County. And that's kind of us missing the mark here. And with this ARPA money, this federal government relief, we have a moment here to invest. So we're trying to do that. Second, the housing initiative also focused on helping seniors age in place. And third, expanding shelter capacity, because COVID has kind of exacerbated the problem of homelessness and housing insecurity around the country. But it's also happened here, so we have 90 more permanently homeless people out of the 3,000 we did have. Second thing that we're working on is childcare. So we're trying to make it more affordable and accessible. So if any of you have anything to say about that, please let me know. I'm an uncle, so I know a couple of you have things to say. And then the last big thing is about seniors. Just to frame this, you all understand this because you work in government too. We did a report, so now we have the report that justifies that, yes, in fact, Oakland County is one of the fastest aging counties in the state, and Michigan is aging faster than the state of Florida. I know that's kind of a mind bender. People move to Florida when they get 65 and up. People in Michigan move out of Michigan, so then the population percentage, that's 60, right? Okay. Either way, point is we need to make sure we're taking care of our seniors in a way that's appropriate. So some of the big things that we should be coming up with, especially use this ARPA money in the next couple months, is connecting disparate services, because I know, for example, when y'all were talking CDBG, you do stuff with seniors. And so making sure that we can get to a scale with that so that that money can be used more fortuitously. And then also quality of life, because how we think about what it means to be 70 years old is based on what it meant to be 70 years old the last time the last generation thought about that. So 70-year-olds should be starting businesses and, being leaders on nonprofit boards and participating in government. That isn't, I think, the normal narrative. So we've talked about ways to invest in incentivizing that. And last thing this is more for the city manager, is the water sewer planning grant that we worked on. The application's been extended, so if you need more time, you got it. Oh, good. Okay, then never mind. Any questions I can answer?
Any questions?
No?
That was great, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
very much.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
On to police.
I'll come up and speak real fast to tell you that that's 3 acts that are hard to follow. So the police part has been quiet, so we really don't have anything to present. So I'll keep moving along, turn over to the fire chief, who I think is going to echo the same sentiment.
Okay.
Yeah, we planned this. We said this month we're gonna be quiet. No, there's actually, it's been pretty status quo. I know I did share some stuff out on some Facebook regarding what's the snow coming. To remind people when you're clearing your driveways and stuff, do not clog and block like your dryer vents and your furnace vents. Because if that can't exhaust out of your house, all that carbon monoxide backs up into your house. So I tried to get reminders out so people stayed safe, and I think we were people did stay safe, which is a wonderful thing. So on that, we're good to go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything from the rec commission, or we'll wait?
And next time, can we go before Charlie and
Cool. All right, I think we'll move on to the consent agenda.
Oh, wait.
Oh, one more?
Mary.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed one. Yes, please.
This is the big one.
Good evening, Mary Foreman, 60 Oakdale. I am one of the 2 PR Library Board members for the Huntington Woods Library, along with my lovely friend Stacy Stutcher. And first, we want to thank Chris for kindly delivering our reports for the last year when I was too chicken to come here and speak. So I'm a little nervous, so bear with me. The library has been going through a bit of a transition in the past 6 months or so. It welcomed a new children's service librarian named Calla Sundin. And she has reinvigorated the children's services with 4 different levels of story times offered weekly, and the very popular Wacky Science Thursdays and Super Saturdays. In addition, a new library director is on the way. Ann Hage, the longtime director, will be retiring very soon. I'm still waiting for word on that. We did not have a meeting. In January, we did not have a quorum because there are a lot of snowbirds in Florida. But soon, I hope to have an update on that. There is a Black History Month program for children coming up on Saturday, February 19th at 2:30. It's going to be in the Woods Gallery in the basement of the library. They're going to feature story time with African American authors and an art collage project in the style of, and I hope I pronounce this properly, Jean-Michel Basquiat. Basquiat. And let's see, one more thing. In addition to the great programs that are offered at the library, and of course, the great selection of books, I wanted to start highlighting the large amount of online services that the library provides free of charge through use of your library card. This month, I want to mention Mango Languages, which is a service that allows you to reach a conversational comfort level in a variety of languages. There's a lot to choose from. Cool. Each lesson combines real-life situations and audio from native speakers with simple, clear instructions. And the funding for Mango was made possible through a library penny drive, actually. Cool. You can access Mango through the library website at www.huntingtonwoodslib.org. And then you go under virtual services and you'll see a bunch of other stuff, which I'll talk more about next month. So, any questions?
Awesome, thank you.
No, that's awesome.
All right, great.
All right, sorry I didn't see you there. That was great.
Thank you.
Yes.
No, Mary, I just wanted to thank you so much for pushing information out there for everyone.
Oh, no
It has
problem.
been so helpful to see all the different art programs and adult programs and kids stuff, and it's really fun. And yeah, the library is a super amazing tool, and
Yeah.
you help us know all the stuff that.
Well, great. I'm glad everyone's
different ways
seeing
to
it
use it.
and
Thank
signing
you.
up and enjoying it. So thank you.
Awesome,
Thanks.
thank you. All right, I think we'll go on to the consent agenda now.
All right.
May I have a motion?
Mayor, I move that the consent agenda be approved.
Second.
May I have a vote?
Commissioner Budnick?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmier?
Yes.
Commissioner Lenko?
Yes.
Commissioner Perry?
Yes.
Mayor Scott?
Yes. Okay, and with that, we'll move on to the outdoor pavilion rental policy. Greg, would you like to say a few words about that? Maybe more than a few?
Greg Callbeck, the Assistant Recreation Director. So this year we will be making the 2 new pavilions, one at Gainsborough Park and the one at the pool, available for rental. And so we worked with about 10 different communities and tried to figure out the best policies that made the most sense. We're kind of unique in regards to the size of our city and staffing compared to a lot of the other cities, so we had to kind of make shift what a lot of the big cities have with what a lot of the smaller cities also did to make that all work. So our plan is sort of to have from April through October to do rentals for the Gainsborough Park Pavilion, and then during the pool season do 2 half-day rental options on weekends for the pool pavilion during pool season. We were looking at just doing a Saturday and Sunday for the Gainsborough Park Pavilion as well. And then the rest of the time is sort of it's just an open space. Our biggest concerns have always been just sort of the keeping it clean. It's going to be a learning process for us. We think all the stuff that we presented to you ahead of time is pretty straightforward and makes a lot of sense and should be providing the best opportunity for everybody who wants to use it in the community, and should be a great use of the space. There's a fireplace over at the Gainsborough Park one. That's sort of one of the things we're juggling with because that's one of the definitely very unique features that most other communities don't have to offer. So it should be an interesting experience. It should be a lot of fun. So yeah, I'm here to answer any questions you guys might have about those.
Excellent. There were some comments about the rules.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so number one, thank you, both you and Shawnee, for answering, and for Jim for answering questions that I had, because I definitely had some questions today, and you've been great. And also, I know you've done a ton of research. One of my questions was, like, how did we come up with these costs?
We have a huge packet right here.
Right, right. No. And so I know that you guys put a lot of time and effort into it. My initial thought regarding the Gainsborough specific is just now that the idea is 12 till dusk.
Right.
Which is like 9 hours, which is awesome, right? You have it for 9 hours,
right,
or whenever, depending. For me, I'm curious if there's an option to at least elaborate or continue the discussion about getting that from this 9 hour to shorter periods of time for people who want to have birthday parties and they don't need it for 9 hours.
Sure.
They might want it for 2 or 3 hours. So for me, that was something that I was, hoping that we could continue the conversation and, maybe allow the rec commission to have another meeting to engage in that conversation too. And just make sure that for me, I would feel more comfortable personally approving something, with just a little bit more discussion just to make sure it's fully, we've explored all the different options. But I know you guys have done a lot of work on it.
Yeah,
so
I mean, for
appreciate it.
us personally, the biggest concern with that is since we are such a small department, a lot of the bigger cities who do multiple rentals, like half-day rentals on weekends, they have a 7-day-a-week staff, like a DPW staff who is cleaning their parks regularly. We contract out our cleaning services for the shelter over there. Part of the reason we also have the 2-week period, there's a 14-day window, is because they need, for cancellations and scheduling, is so they can get somebody there to make sure it's clean. Because one of the concerns is if you have 2 parties on a weekend, there's the potential for, if the first group decides to just go crazy and leave a huge mess, we don't want the next group to come in and experience a really messy space. We want to provide a clean space. So a lot of that is sort of, if we do 2 in a day, that's another period we have to find somebody to check on the weekend when we don't normally have somebody scheduled. And so, I mean, like I said, all this stuff is very new. It's very unique to our community. So we'll definitely figure out sort of how we can change this over the course of this year. It's obviously a very fluid situation. If we need to make changes, that's definitely something we would consider. It's going to be learning for us too.
And that word, I'm glad you used that word, fluid. And Commissioner Schmier and I were talking, and that's the sense I got from Shawnee and the Rec Commission was that you're going to have to learn. This is going to be some trial and error. It's something new, and I get the constraints you're under. So I think, we're malleable too, and we're learning with you. And I think just the sense that I got from Commissioner Schmier was just at, can we massage it down and just
Oh, yeah,
entertain
absolutely.
and really just understand,
Yeah.
what we've talked about, if there are other options. And like I said, you've got a packet. I know what you guys are presenting has been well researched. So
Well, and for instance, like we're able to offer at the pool those shorter periods because we have a staff that's going to be there. I mean, you're not going to be able to use that. If the pool is closed, you're not going to be able to use it. We're going to have to do a reschedule for you on that because
Right.
just a safety concern. So it's a little easier for us to police.
Yeah.
The Gainsborough space is not a fully staffed space all the time, so it's a little
Right.
bit more of a struggle for us sometimes. But we'll make it work for sure.
and maybe that's something that we as a community will have to just put out there too, is that it might not be perfect, and that's just part of the nature of it, because you guys can't be everywhere, and we don't expect you to be
Right.
there all the time, So I think that's going to have to be part of the expectation, I think.
Yeah.
And either way, we're looking forward to.
And 95% of the time, it won't be an issue. It's that one party that decides they're going to trash the place and
Right.
not and leave it all. It's the outliers, yeah.
For sure.
What's the problem we're trying to solve for? Is it that we're requiring people to buy too much time, or we're not maximizing the number of rentals in a day?
No, for me, number one, I don't see it necessarily as a problem. So that's the first thing, because I do. For me, though, what I do want to massage more and just consider more is not about multiple rentals in a day, but making sure we are giving residents the opportunity, if possible, to rent for shorter periods of time for, birthday parties. If they don't, if
From
they,
like a cost perspective.
right, from a
Yeah.
cost and also
Sharing the space more.
yeah, and making, and then having that space now really open to anyone else who's at the park. So just making sure we're looking at that a little bit more. And again, I'm imagining like the young kid in the birthday party and the kids want to go to the park and, it's not necessarily an all-day event.
It's not a 6-hour thing. It's a 2-hour,
Right.
3-hour thing.
And right. So again, just kind of making sure we're kind of just exploring or processing.
Well, the main thought process behind that is it's more of a convenience factor for us to manage. But it's one of those things. If you have a party and you've rented it and you've left and somebody else says, hey, no one's using it, the majority of the time of day throughout the course of the week and the rest of the year, it is still there. You might not be able to use the fireplace. That is something that will be strictly for rentals for safety concerns. We spoke with the fire marshal in Ferndale about that. But the space itself will be available, and it's simply if somebody else has it booked, they're the ones that have first choice on that specific day. But we can't prevent somebody from using an open space in the park. It's part of the park.
Right.
We have no control over that. So if you had a short party and somebody else shows up, they have to know if the other person came back and was planning something that they would lose priority. But I think the majority of the time that shouldn't be too much of a headache. A lot of the other communities do it the same way. So, and they've pretty much everybody said that's not ever really been a huge issue. I mean, if there really is a conflict, they'll have to contact somebody. But we're going to have all the rentals posted on the board there so everybody will know who has the space for that given day and time.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Where's the board?
So we're going to put up essentially a bulletin board with the rules and then
Okay.
who's got it rented for that weekend essentially, and we'll change that regularly.
Mayor Scott?
Yes.
I had a quick question. I think, these policies they look great. I know it's so much detail and we could go into too many specifics, and I'm sure, like you're saying, they will change fluidly. Like the thing I was sort of looking at was just the refund and weather policy. And I know Shawnee and I talked about it a little.
Yeah.
Like at the pool, obviously it's clear cut if the pool's closed. So
Right. I mean, generally, yes, obviously the concern is, hey, I want to have a party. The weather's terrible. It's rainy. It's windy.
yeah.
We want to reschedule. That's something we were kind of looking at, is that we still, I mean, obviously you're not going to be able to predict the weather 2 weeks out. It's
Right.
just not that reliable.
No.
So yes, we're thinking, we'll consider offering some sort of,
Great.
rescheduling option for some of these people who have, a day of type of situation. Though these are covered spaces, which is one of the nice things about them. It's different than if you wanted to have a party at the park 2 years ago and you could use a picnic table under a tree, which is not ideal in a thunderstorm or when it's raining. If it's just raining and it's, not terrible, that is still a usable space that, I know in my previous experience in Troy, that was still a lot of people use the spaces in rain because it is covered and you
It's
have
space.
access to the bathrooms and it's it's the luxury of at least having a covered space at the park.
And presumably people are sending out invites to whatever event they're having. You
Sure.
know, like, it's hard to cancel the event, but yes.
Yeah, so I mean,
I
it's.
agree.
But we're willing to work with people. It's
Right.
definitely it's understandable in those instances of, bad weather that's unpredictable.
Cool. Thank you.
Great.
Anything else?
So the challenge we have is that we're approving the rules as they are written. Have we heard enough this evening that people are comfortable voting, or would we like to wait a month and not have a motion or table?
Yeah, may I ask, has anybody inquired about renting yet?
Yeah, we've had several people call. We've had even people calling asking, "Hey, can we run it for February?" Which is not within our window. So it's simply I don't think you're going to get a lot of competition in February to use the space. It's kind of cold, but yes, we have had several people
It's
who
like a
are.
handful, or
Oh, we've had probably about 10 people so far who are interested. A lot of the people, so most of our spaces have kind of already filled up at the community center for like graduation parties, and there's people who are considering smaller little gatherings over at the park, and they're just like, well, let us know when it's available. So we will push that out to them when we have approval.
and changing the rules? Can we change the policy? How does it take to change the policy?
I think the question is, and actually, if you could tell us, if we waited until next month to vote on this, would that be a challenge? So long as we're the policy is up by April 1st.
I mean, it's like anything. It just closes the window a little bit. We have to tell people to wait a little bit longer. I mean, it's not an issue of, we're losing out on that availability since we weren't going to do rentals anyways in the next month. But, it's just sort of procedural. It opens it up a little sooner. It's like with all our programs. The earlier we make it available, the earlier people can jump in those
Start booking.
spots.
Right.
Yeah, and plan ahead to get those spots saved. So
Sure.
entirely up to you guys.
So I guess it's up to the commission whether we'd like to make a motion and move forward with the policy as written, or if there are still questions that we have open.
Well, and what does it take to change? Like, if we approve it tonight and in 6 months we decide it needs to be
Amended. Right?
Yeah, we can do that, right?
Sure.
So, yeah, I don't see any problem with the way it's presented then. I'm comfortable as long as we can, if it's fluid and we can make tweaks along the way.
Oh, and we wholly expect there could definitely be changes.
This
Like
is
we
gonna
said,
be
this
a
is the
year
first
of-
time we're doing it, so
There's gonna be some
we'll
time
figure
to
stuff out
kinda-
pretty quickly. What's working and what's not working. So
Yeah, it's, in terms of amending it too, you can always, this would normally be under the purview of the rec commission.
Mm-hmm.
So since it is a brand new thing with brand new structures, we brought it here just for, the first review. If in the future you want the rec commission to have the ability to review these and make changes to them as we learn, you can certainly vest that with them as well.
Okay.
Oh,
Would
excellent.
that change the motion, or just it's assumed? Okay.
Thanks for that.
Probably wanted to specify that.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, and I say, Mayor, I do. That's my thought was like I enjoy giving the rec commission the empowering them
Oh,
to
yeah.
for you and for you guys to empower to what you see as fit. You're the ones discussing it, so
it helps us get a different perspective too.
Right.
We're
Yeah.
looking at it from one perspective. They're coming from more of the public perspective.
right.
I agree.
Do you want to make the motion? No.
Are we going for it? Well, I guess I think with Commissioner Lingo said, I feel comfortable just giving them. From
I
what
do
I'm
too.
getting is, we're almost there. So let's go for it, and
Yeah.
we can kind of pivot as needed. So, yes, I'd gladly. Your Honor, I move the outdoor pavilion rental policy be approved.
Should we add a line here suggesting that it then goes back to the rec department for future? Where did we land on that?
You can specify that.
Okay.
Yes, it's
Okay,
up to you.
I think we should. And,
Okay.
And future. You ready?
Thanks, guys. I'll have a seat.
Wait, we're not through yet. No, I'm just kidding.
So I'm going to try this again.
Okay.
Your Honor, I move the outdoor pavilion rental policy be approved. and when future considerations or changes are needed to be considered by the Rec Commission.
Sounds good.
Sorry.
I second.
Okay. Any other comment before we take a vote? Let's grab a vote.
Commissioner Budnick?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmier?
Yes.
Commissioner Lenko?
Yes.
Commissioner Perry?
Yes.
Mayor Scott?
Yes. And the motion carries. All right, we're moving on to a discussion around the Parks and Recreation capital improvement. We've gone through a lot of the items that we've had in our recreation master plan. We know that moving forward, we're likely to be looking at some other new things. We thought we'd just take a moment this month to describe where we're at today, where we might be looking in the future. It's sort of an addition to what we discussed last month and where we've been. We'll talk about where we're headed. And I'll pass it over to the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. So the last Parks and Rec master plan developed in 2018, passed in late 2018, early 2019, and had a 5-year window from 2019 to 2023. This was the action plan included in the Parks and Rec master plan. It was the most important recommendations for capital improvements and park improvements. And we've accomplished most of the priority 1 and priority 2 recommendations. The shelter and pavilion have been constructed. Also, additional seating and shade at the grass area of the pool morphed into the second pavilion at the pool. Pathway lighting was accomplished in Gainesboro Park with significant help from the Pleasant Ridge Foundation. And then the repair replace fountain in Memorial Park, that was completed by the Garden Club. So they took care of that one for us generously. So at this point, we're left with some of the lower priority capital improvements, ones that maybe didn't have as much enthusiasm behind them. A natural play area at Flynn Field, a tennis backboard, and then outdoor fitness stations, which is something that has constantly gotten a lot of interest from a few people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that I'm not sure is worth it. We have a fitness center already. And I see these installed in a lot of parks, and I don't know how many people you really see use them ever. So it's something I'd want to certainly take a look at before I spend money on. But the point is, we've accomplished most of the big ticket and most of the items around which there is enthusiasm. So at this point, we've got a couple years left in this Parks and Recreation Master Plan. And we've been having funding sources that have been paying for these, mostly the Parks Special Revenue Fund. So we've got the Gainesboro Park project. It was funded by a 10-year millage. I want to maybe have a discussion with the commission about some ideas for where we go for the next few years. The Gainesboro Park project was completed with a 0.75 mil property tax millage approved in 2014. That's been reduced down to 0.6557 mils by Headley over the intervening years. That generates $113,000 of annual revenue. The park was constructed with a $1 million loan from SCAF, not the Park Special Revenue Fund portion because it didn't exist when that project was done, but a $1 million loan from SCAF, so we self-financed the park. And then that Gainesboro Park millage is replenishing SCAF for that loan annually. So there's 2 parts to SCAF. I'm going to take a little bit of a diversion here, but by city code, there's always been a corpus amount. That was the amount we received from the state. That was our settlement amount. And by ordinance, since we received that in the 90s, we are not supposed to go below that. We're not supposed to spend the principal. We're supposed to live off the interest that SCAF generates. So the original corpus amount was $3,242,872. When we split SCAF into 2 parts, the remaining portion in SCAF was $1,242,000 and change. And then the new special revenue fund had $2 million in it. When we created the special revenue fund, we pegged that corpus amount to inflation so that over time it would maintain that level. So currently, the special revenue fund corpus amount is $2.234 million. Currently, the fund balance in regular SCAF is $945,000. So it's still owed $297,000 and change for the Gainsborough Park project, which is what that millage has been refunding. The special revenue fund had, as of today, had a fund balance of $2.857 million. So there's excess there. We've built some excess over time. We've been trying to, again, live off of interest in there because we get annual cash returns from dividends, interest, capital gains from the investments. That's average about $60,000 a year. So just keep that number in the back of your head. Going forward, the recreation capital spending, now that we've accomplished most of what I think are the interest items that were in that Parks and Rec master plan, we have the opportunity to look at pausing or reducing our parks capital spending. And then we have the opportunity to maybe use some of that park special revenue fund to offset some or all of the parks millage until regular SCAF is repaid. We've got about 2 years left on the Parks and Rec master plan. We've got about 3 years. Well, we do have 3 years left on the parks millage, so the timing lines up fairly well. So these are just some example approaches to think about. If we take that $60,000 dividend and capital gains returns we get in the special revenue fund, that would offset about 2/3 of the parks millage. We could reduce that to about 2.225 mils instead of the 0.655 mils. If you were going to redirect 30,000 of the special revenue funding to SCAF and retain 30,000 for whatever parks capital spending we wanted to do for smaller projects and improvements, the parks millage could be reduced by 1/3. Or we could just offset the millage entirely with the park special revenue fund over the coming 3 years. And, it would be a little bit more than the cash returns we're getting, but that's fine. We've built up enough of a cushion that wouldn't be, a huge hit. So then the parks millage would be reduced to 0 mils. That's a 100% reduction. So really, this is February, and we're starting to get into the budget season. So I wanted to convene this discussion tonight as early thoughts as we start to put together first drafts of the budget and putting together our plan for the coming fiscal year. These are the 3 main considerations I think that I'd like to get the commission's input on. No decisions are necessary tonight, but just wanted to introduce this idea for, I guess, early feedback and potentially direction.
Thank you. Were there any thoughts on what we just heard?
My initial, it's really interesting to see, and I like that we have some options, especially, obviously, as we're talking about water infrastructure and a potential new millage, keeping an eye on existing millages and kind of evaluating our all of our taxes. So honestly, I think for me, it's a lot to think about. Which is great. I really like the idea of evaluating where we are and the fact that we do have flexibility here.
We're in a fortunate position to have the option to roll back taxes if we wanted to.
Yeah.
And we don't have any major projects planned, although the next 5-year plan, I imagine, will start in another 1.5 or 2 years.
Right. So, the 5-year window with Parks and Rec master plans is because the state DNR requires you to have a 5-year adopted current 5-year Parks and Recreation master plan. It's a bit of a moot point because, we win a lot of grants here, but recreation grants we almost never win because they're very heavily weighted on need, and we never meet any of the criteria with the community demographics we have. So I'm not, if we waited and said, okay, we're going to start a new Parks and Rec master plan to coincide with the end of, this 3-year window, it wouldn't really make much of a difference.
Mayor, I'm sorry.
No, please.
I was going to say, I'm just reflecting as someone that was really involved through that process of the Rec Master Plan. It's great to see how it's enriched the community. That it really has been a draw. And I talk to people from, North Detroit that come up, friends in Palmer Woods that say, we've come to Gainsborough Park. It is awesome. And it's so awesome to see that investment, I think, it shows. The park is always busy, and it's great. And to me, it's a conflicting thing because I'm also, I typically see some type of a hybrid or a balance. So I don't know where this will all suss out, but I'd like to think that we could find some middle ground somewhere, but I'm open. There's so many options, and I just see what that investment did for the community. So it's encouraging. I also see that we have some daunting decisions ahead of us as well, to put it lightly.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is a great place to be, and I'm up for more discussion around it, of course, and yeah, I'm open.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks for these different options. I think this is a great thing for us to have time to sort of consider as we're moving into the budget. And yeah, it's very helpful how you laid it out for us. Thank you very much.
Would you see us having a workshop before the next commission meeting, or maybe between now and April, to go through the options? Or
I think that I just wanted to get you thinking about these so that when
Yeah.
we start to have our budget workshops, which normally start early April, just so you're prepared. But I wanted you to be better prepared with some time to, kick the idea around. I didn't want to introduce or, have this be a new thing at that point.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I don't think we need to have any special discussion of this between now and then.
Okay.
If you want to, we can.
Yeah. No, I think it's just great to keep everybody informed, and as I say, we're in a fortunate position that our parks are in good condition. We've really invested in our public spaces. It's an envious position to be in, and we'll figure out what to do with the money that we don't need. It's a good place to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
it was it has been a great investment. Like Chris said, the park and the other improvements have been amazing. Improvement and like part of asset to the community. So thanks.
Cool. All right. Thank you. All right. I think we'll go on to the Board of Review appointments. Thanks for the two people that had submitted their applications for this position.
Yes.
And I think we'll just go for a motion.
Mayor, I move that, Christine Matthias be appointed as regular member and Thomas Troiter be an alternate member of the Pleasant Ridge Board of Review.
I second that.
Yeah.
Maybe we have a vote. Oh, actually, any comments or anything before a vote?
No, I agree.
I think,
Commissioner Perry beat me to it, but I agree.
Yeah, Mary, both great people. So love to see them both on there in some capacity.
yeah,
Awesome. Thank
Yep.
you. May we have a vote?
Commissioner Perry?
yes.
Commissioner Lenko?
Yes.
Commissioner Budnick?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmier?
Yes.
Mayor Scott?
Yes. And the motion carries. And now we'll go on to the city manager report.
I wanted to update you on the status of the detailed water system inventory, the service line verification.
I had
Well-
fun.
Just a box of chocolate. So we're about halfway through the verification. 115 of the 224 have been complete.
Wow.
And by state rules, if any portion of the service line is lead, it's a lead line for all reporting and replacement requirement purposes. So far, 85% of our service lines are lead, and 15% qualify as not lead. The breakdown is that 85% of the public side service leads are lead, and only 15% have been copper. On the private side, it's a little more of what we expected. A little bit less than half are lead, and then you've got my percentages don't add up there. That's my fault. Obviously, 51% copper. But yeah, I was
Is this an unmodified? Or this is modified.
something else. Yeah, this is 5:15 putting things into a spreadsheet. 'Cause I got the update at 3:30 today. So 17 houses have both public and private copper lines, and then 98 houses qualify as having a lead line. 44 of those are all lead. One house has lead on the public side and plastic on the private side. 53 have lead on the public side. And, 53 have all lead. 44 are lead on the public side, copper on the private side. So you know, it's not good news. It doesn't change much because when you replace a water main, you have to replace all of the public service lines anyways. The only way this would really materially impact us is if we had been planning on not replacing water mains, because this would be increasing our estimates by, 25% for the number of service lines we'd have to replace. On most streets, when they laid down the water main, even if a house was built in 1940, they probably plumbed in the service lead for that property when they put the water main down. So the service lead might have been from 1924, and then the copper private side attachment might have been in 1940. So it doesn't, given that we were already planning on replacing all of the public side service leads with the water main replacement projects, which is standard practice for a new water main, doesn't really impact our costs. The thing it does impact is the minimum number of service line replacements we're supposed to do each year. But I don't really care. We're going to do what we can do, and the state will deal with this.
Mm-hmm.
So
we had estimated maybe closer to 70%,
So
if I recall.
initially we had estimated 60% lead, and that was based off our record search. So that was based off the water service cards. So when a house was built, they put in a new water service, and then that was on a card. But of course, if the public side had been laid down in 1924, they didn't say that that was already there or not. They just had what the new service line running into the house was.
Right.
So that's where we had about 60% of the service cards said that we had lead service lines. So that 15% difference is just people over the course of, the last 100 years changing their private side lead line to a copper line. Because, a significant number of homeowners have done that.
Right.
So, this is why, as part of the random sample, we know that Maplefield, Elm Park, Boulevard, and Millington have had their water mains already changed. So we fully expect that all of the public side leads there are copper, but we still have to do the service line verification as part of the state to get the sufficiently inclusive random sample of all properties to get a true picture with 95% confidence of what our system actually consists of. So we've had people on Elm Park Boulevard calling in, why are you doing this? We know we had the service line down and say, well, because it's a random sampling process. We have to do it because if we didn't include Elm Park, then we'd probably have 100% lead service lines. Because if you exclude all of the water mains that have already been done, you're excluding all of the copper side, public side. So for that reason, we had to still verify on streets where we knew that the water mains had been replaced.
And based on what we know, when would do we think we'll be complete with the random checking?
We should be done within 2 weeks.
Okay.
Because it's been about 2 weeks to get the 115 done. So at that pace, we should be done within 2 weeks.
Well, based on my personal experience, the crew was actually quite nice. They were very friendly, although slightly frustrated that the blue line wasn't in the right place. But other than that,
Right.
they were very efficient and just sort of got the work done. Yeah.
Yep. So the reason that we're not rushing, the reason why we got in early in this process is this data will help us. We're applying to the state drinking water revolving loan fund because that's how you have to access the federal dollars. So knowing for certain what our distribution system materials actually are will buttress our case to the state for why we should get funding. 85% is obviously more than 50 or 60, so that demonstrates we have a greater need. So we wanted to have that data, that hard and fast known data for our application purposes.
Right.
So I was going to say, Mayor, it's ironic that Rep. Weiss and Senator Moss have gone for this part. This would have
I have been in contact with both of them personally, so they know.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. So from what you're saying, to confirm, it's a lot of you're seeing a lot on everything but the ones that you have seen done, the Maplefield, Elm Park Boulevard. Everything else is pretty much coming up lead.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, there's a few surprises. There's one or two houses on Devonshire that had a copper public side lead.
Okay.
But it could have just been that they had a break. So, their water main, their service line could have had a leak in it 20 years ago, and that was replaced with a copper when that happened. So, there's a lot of things that happen in 100 years.
Right.
But all in all, it's, falling right in how we would have guessed.
Okay.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
That's all I have for tonight.
That's
Unless
enough.
anyone has
That's a
questions.
lot.
Yeah, that is a lot.
I actually have a question, if that's all right.
Sure, yes, please.
Yes, thank you.
If you could.
I'm just wondering what's the definition of public and private?
Sure.
And could you give your name and address?
Absolutely. Beth and Turpy,
Mm-hmm.
30 Sylvan.
Thank you.
The public side lead is your service line for water coming in from the water main to your house. It has two portions. The public side goes from the water main to the stop box, and the stop box is usually located on the house side of the sidewalk, right where the property line is.
Okay.
And then the private side is the homeowners from there in.
Thank you.
Thanks for your question. All right, I think that's it. Other business. Hands.
Sorry. Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to give just a brief update on Woodward Heights. The selection committee actually did 2 interviews this morning that were great. And so we are moving forward with making a decision on that and getting things started. And Commissioner Linko, I don't know if you have anything to add, but things are moving forward. And we had 2 really great interviews with 2 very qualified groups. So whatever we decide, I think
It will be a good choice.
it will be a good choice, yes. And
It's great to hear.
That's great.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. All right, anything else?
The only thing I would add is it is our goal to have that before you in March.
Excellent.
Excellent.
We have to get some work done, make sure that that's ready to go. The other thing I should also mention, I'm going to give you a preview for March as well. One thing that'll be on the agenda is a new water service contract. Royal Oak has terminated their water service contract with us effective April 1. So we've been working with the Oakland County Water Resources Commission to pick up our water and sewer maintenance work. So when there's a break, when there's an issue, they're the ones who come out. And there's also some legal requirements. You have to have a designated operator who's a certified water operator who has there's different types of system, S2, S3, S4. And so you have to have a qualified public water service operator. Royal Oak has been providing that to us. So the Water Resources Commission can pick all of that up. Royal Oak couldn't handle our work, so certainly none of the other neighboring cities nearby had the interest or capacity to take us on. So fortunately, the county can. So that's good. They bring a wealth of resources. They probably have a few more resources than Royal Oak had to devote to our water and sewer maintenance. But that will be coming in March for your approval.
Okay. And just a water service is essentially water maintenance.
Yeah, it's our our DPW for water and sewer maintenance. So we've been doing a lot of the capital work. You know, AEW puts together the project plans for the sewer cleaning, for the lining, and that will probably continue as we've been doing. But for the day-to-day, for exercising valves, for maintaining hydrants, for when there's a water main break, we don't have water main breaks, but when there's a service line, normally it's the old lead service lines that we have one of them bursts underground. We have some experience with that.
Oh, we don't
Table.
have those?
So the Water Resources Commission will be the responders to deal with those
Gotcha.
with those types of issues, and they have the capacity. They have a contract with D'Angelo Brothers, who we've also been using for some of our surplus capital improvement work. They use them, so they have a contract that they've already bid out. So it should be a pretty seamless transition for us.
What's driving the change?
Royal Oak terminating their contract with us.
What's causing that?
The fact that all of these things we've been talking about, Royal Oak has to also deal with. And it's just, it's the amount of time I spend on water and sewer has gone up by about 1,000% in the last year or 2 years. And Royal Oak's dealing with the same thing.
Okay.
So they just don't have the bandwidth. And they've had personnel changes over there. So the people who were there when the agreement was put together in 2005 have all moved on. So you just have a different set of people making the decisions over there.
Okay.
So
It's nothing we did or anything.
No.
It's just
Nope.
Yep, they're focusing on themselves.
They are, and in fact, the amount that
That's not a bad thing.
the amount we use Royal Oak has gone down, and compared to the probably 5 years ago, we've been calling them less recently, and taking on more that we've been managing and contracting out, but they just can't do it reliably.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, thank you again. Any other items for things not on the agenda? All right, I think we'll adjourn the meeting. We have a motion to adjourn.
Mayor, I move that we adjourn. Oh, sorry.
Take it. Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
The meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everyone, for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.